Just listen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. And forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Colossians 3:13 puts it this way. Bearing with one another, and if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other. As the Lord has forgiven you, so you must also forgive. And in the middle of the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says this in Matthew 6. For if you forgive others their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive yours. In October of 1989, Ruth Whittington got a knock on the door. It was evening, and it was her parents. She was a Jesus follower, and so were they. Her parents knocked on the door and didn't know how to tell it, so they just said it. Her young boy had been hit while riding his bike by a drunk driver and died. Ruth just fell. Tears, heartbroken. Eventually, she put on Ronnie's shirt to try to feel closer to him. She fell asleep sometime in the night and woke up in the morning realizing that she still had a 12-year-old daughter that she had to tell the news to. And she thanked God that she had Christian family and friends who could sit there and pray with her and just talk to her, share stories. But as you can imagine, that was extremely difficult. And that wound never heals, it's just learning to deal with the scar. So 6 months later, she's talking to God about her pain, and she really feels God saying forgiveness. She feels like God's telling her to write a letter to the man who's now incarcerated who killed her son. So she sits down to do that, and she feels God say, hey, send him a Bible too. And she thinks, no way, he doesn't deserve your word. He doesn't deserve to hear about your love. But out of obedience, she does it. But it comes back 2 weeks later. It looked like somebody had thrown it in a mud puddle. It was all dried out and wrinkled. So she called the prison and said, hey, I'm trying to send such and such inmate, a piece of correspondence. And the lady on the phone was like, well, if his last name starts with A and between A and F, then you have to do. And she said, I'm just trying to send a Bible to the man who killed my son. And the other lady on the phone was silent, came back with a totally different tone, and she said, your best option is probably to send it through the prison chaplain. So the lady went back to the Christian bookstore to find a Bible, but the leather Bibles were on sale. She's like, well, it's not that much more than a paperback. So she gets the leather Bible, goes up to the counter, and the lady who's working at the store says, oh, is this a gift? And in her heart, Ruth is like, well, he doesn't deserve a gift. I wouldn't exactly call it a gift. Yes, it's a gift. Well, it's a store policy that we engrave the front of it in golden letters with the person who's going to receive the gift. And Ruth is like, he does not deserve to have his name on the Bible. Oh, yes, that would be lovely. Thank you. She goes home, wraps it up, puts the letter in it, sends it off to the chaplain. 3 days later, she gets a phone call while her and her husband are eating dinner. And it's the chaplain. He says, I don't know who you are, lady, but I want to let you know that so-and-so came into my office. He's never been to a church service. I didn't know him prior to this week, but he came into my office. I gave him what you asked, and he broke down in tears and said, no one has ever given me a Bible as a gift. Of all people, her? So the chaplain said, I see a lot of people talking the talk, but I don't see a lot of people walking the walk. And I don't know what this man's tomorrow holds, but you made a difference in his today. I want to talk about forgiveness in the context of discipleship today. For a couple reasons. This church has decided to re-emphasize, recommit to discipleship, apprenticeship, following Jesus. Call it whatever you want, but here's I believe in Jesus, I believe he is who he said he is, and here's living like it. And we really want to emphasize this. We're going to talk about it because forgiveness and discipleship are inextricably linked. You can't have one without the other. Just like you cannot become a believer in Jesus without receiving his forgiveness, we cannot be a disciple, a follower, a lover of Jesus without extending forgiveness. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. You cannot separate them. And because discipleship, trying to follow Jesus with other people, newsflash, it's messy because it's relationships. And we step on each other's toes, and we betray each other, and we slander one another, and we make mistakes. We outright sin against each other. And at that point, we're faced with a choice. We can either separate and fight, or we can forgive and unite. It's like the first date my wife and I ever went on. We didn't fight. But within the first 30 minutes, I asked her, so, what's your theology on marriage? True story. I was just trying to get rid of her, like, in the sense of, like, obviously she's not going to be the one, so let's just hit her with the big guns right out of the bat. And to my surprise, she liked the question, and she answered it, and I was, oh, wow. So, what's your philosophy on potholes? She said, what? I said, well, any married couple is going to end up making mistakes. They're going to hurt each other. Or life is going to throw you mistakes. Life is going to throw you disease, pain, loss. And what is your philosophy? Do you want to be married to someone who's looking out the windshield of marriage, constantly trying to avoid those potholes? Or are you going to recognize the fact that we're going to hit potholes voluntarily and involuntarily, and that presents an opportunity to get closer to one another in how we deal with the pain and how we deal with the hurt and how we deal with the disappointment? She's like, well, I've never heard it put that way, but I'm in, or else she wouldn't be sitting here today. Forgiveness is the backbone of the good news of Jesus. If we don't understand that, we have no business trying to be followers of Jesus. Again, we can become a believer by receiving his forgiveness, but we cannot follow him without extending forgiveness. So forgive me for going Jesus Storybook Bible style, in other words, 5th grade level for you for a second, but I think it's worth it. The good news of Jesus deals with the fact that the Christian worldview says God created this beautiful planet. All the animals, all the water, all the land, and his pinnacle, his chief, the epitome creation that he did in his own image was men and women, humanity. And he said, oh, this is very good, and we're going to be in relationship. And there were no problems until there was problems. And in one way or another, pick your verb, it doesn't matter. That first generation and every generation since has in one way or another turned their back on the author of life, turned their back on the creator of the universe, said, I don't need you. I don't believe you. I don't think you love me. I don't think you exist. I don't think you can know if you exist. I can do it better on my own. However you want to name it, we have decided to create separation from him and fight instead of receiving his forgiveness, his grace, his provision, and staying united with him. But the catch is, when we create distance with the author of life, we end up getting the opposite of that, which is death, spiritual and physical. You just can't get around it. If you say, I don't want to be around you, then you get the other. But God, being so loving, says, I'm not going to let that be the end of the story. I have a rescue plan. I have to remain just, so I can't just wink at it. So I'm going to create a way to reunite us. Oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to come to earth and pay the penalty that all of us deserve, because any crime against the cosmos, any cosmic crime against God, brings with it the capital punishment. It brings death. So Jesus comes and lives a perfect life. And then let's happen to him what should happen to us. And for anyone who wants it, he says, I'll give you my righteousness and I'll take your sin upon me. Jesus, who was born as a child, lived a life, and then at the end gets betrayed, gets bound, gets falsely accused, gets a sham of a couple trials, gets beat, gets mocked, gets scourged, gets a crown of thorns, gets nailed to a cross. And in the midst of his murder, he forgives. Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. As he's being tortured and murdered, he extends forgiveness. Where we who claim to be followers of Jesus murder with our thoughts the person who cuts us off in traffic. See a little gap there? Like, we're supposed to be narrowing that gap, not just sitting over here like, I believe, I'm going to heaven, while we murder people around us. He is calling us, inviting us to so much more. Like, that's our goal, to be so full of forgiveness because we're so blown away by what he's done for us that as it's happening, as your spouse doesn't understand you, as your coworker takes credit for your work, fill in the blank. That's the goal. And unless we understand where we've come from, the good news of Jesus, we have no chance at actually being effective followers of his, apprentices of his, learners of his, representatives of his. Call it whatever you want. This is probably why he told the parable in Matthew 18 about the unforgiving servant right after he gave a 101 class on conflict resolution. He says, this is what you do when you have problems in the faith family. And then Peter says, oh, so you're saying I got to forgive my brother like 7 times? And Jesus is like, no, like 70 times 7 times. What? Okay, you're not getting it when I say it directly, so how about a story? So then he starts telling a story about a king. This is Matthew 18, who had servants, and one servant owed him about $1 or $2 billion with a B in today's money. And the servant comes in because the time to pay was up and then starts groveling and please forgive me, I'm so sorry, I'll pay it back, I promise. And the king says, okay, you know what, I'm not only going to give you more time, I'm just going to wipe out the debt. You owe me nothing. Oh, thank you, sire, thank you. And he goes outside and he's just feeling so much lighter. And a short while later, he sees a guy who owes him a couple $100. And he chases him down. He's like, hey, you owe me a couple $100, right? Well, yeah, but I just need a little more time to get it back. No, I need it right now. But I got to feed the kids. I promise I got this thing going. I'll get it back. The first servant starts choking him out, saying, give me my money. He says, I can't. So he throws him in the debtor's prison for a couple $100 after being forgiven $2 billion the same day. Well, the other servants hear about it, and they say, what the heck? So they run off to the king. Hey, this is what the first servant, the one that you forgave all that money, he just went and choked out some other guy, threw him in jail, and the king is furious. So he calls back the servant, and he says, you wicked servant. How could you not forgive him for a couple $100 when I just forgave you that enormous debt? Now, you're going to jail until you can pay back every penny. But the cool thing is, those of us who claim to be Christians, our king isn't just. He's not just fair and good. He's incredibly loving and sacrificial. He's like the king from 1,500 years ago, which I cannot verify is a true story or not, but that doesn't really matter because there was another king. Big old broad shoulders, really tall. His people loved him. He was so kind, so generous. So he was so surprised to hear that somebody was stealing out of his treasury. He was really angry, so he said, you know what? 10 lashes. 10 lashes for the thief. Then another week went by, and he still hadn't found the thief. He was just beside himself because he was so kind. So he posted a public announcement, 20 lashes for the thief. 2 more weeks go by. He's beside himself, so he said, that's it, 40 lashes when we find the thief. And 40 lashes was the same thing as a death sentence. Most people couldn't survive it. Trauma, blood loss. A few days later, he found the thief. It was his daughter. So his advisor said, hey, you got to change the law. You got to make an exception. But he was a good and honest king, and he said, I can't. Told the executioner to prepare for the lashings. And the day came, and they tied his daughter to the post, probably ripped open the back of her dress, and the executioner raised his hand to start the lashing. And then a voice rang out. It was the king. Stop. Nobody said a word. And this king walked up to his daughter, tied to the post, and with his big, broad shoulders and arms, his body was much bigger than hers, he covered her. He looked back at the executioner and he said, proceed. And the executioner said, sire, I can't. And a voice that edged on anger but wasn't angry, it was something else, something much deeper. He said, I gave you a command. Proceed. And that king willingly gave up his life for his child because he loved her and he remained just and right and true. That's like our king. Stated plainly, when we try to emphasize living out what we believe, I'm doing air quotes, not because I don't believe it, but to make a point. Christians, people who say that this is true, that Jesus is a historical figure that died and got out of the grave, we believe that God came as a man and lived a perfect life, and that somehow he took all of our sin and our garbage, and all we have to do is nothing. All we have to do is say, please forgive me. I don't deserve to have it corrected. I don't deserve to have that relationship fixed. That's all you want me to do is say, I don't deserve it. Please, can I have your forgiveness? You're going to forgive my $2 billion, and you're just asking me to forgive $10 here and $2 there and $100 there? Like, when we make that emphasis, was we as a local body of people that are trying to follow Jesus move from just believing to following, or to re-emphasize that or recommit to that, that is going to create waves. Because it requires relationship. I can sit over here in my little silo and read the Bible. Oh, praise you, Jesus. This, oh, warm and fuzzy. Oh, so amazing. Oh, I love it. Oh, I'm going to do another Bible study. Oh, I'm going to read another book. Oh, I love you, Jesus. That's one thing. Trying to walk it out with other people and encourage one another and go love people that are other than us, that believe something different, and to move towards forgiveness in the moment, that's pothole territory. And Jesus has a big category for potholes. He says, let's harness them. He sees them as opportunities. Joseph, first book of the Bible, and his brothers who had betrayed him, he looks at them and says, what you intended for evil, God intended for good. That's pothole theology. Every marriage, every relationship, every church has the opportunity to unite or fight. And it's going to be up to Pastor Worth. No, it's going to be up to you and you and me and you and you and you. He cannot turn us into active followers of Jesus. And I'm not saying that nobody here isn't a follower of Jesus. And while I'm on a caveat, I'm also going to say this. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting somebody off the hook. Forgiveness doesn't mean avoiding the consequences that come from the pothole. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting your accuser, your abuser, your user just stay where they were. Sometimes it means healthy separation. But forgiveness does mean turning it over to God, putting it on God's scales, God's hook, letting God's justice, mercy, and grace deal with it, and taking ourselves out of the seat of judgment. But other than that, the potholes that I'm talking about, oh, you hurt my feelings. Oh, you said something about my spouse. Oh, you stole my cookies. Oh, you got in the snack line before me. Whatever it is, can we forgive one another? It won't be easy, but it'll be beautiful. I think a really good picture of where we're headed is Proverbs 14:4, which says, where there are no oxen, the manger is clean, but abundant crops come by the strength of the ox. In other words, if you want a bumper crop, you want to plant a field and actually have a decent harvest, you're going to need some cattle. You're going to need a cow. You're going to need livestock to make that happen. But if you're so concerned about your barns and your stalls being clean that you don't want any cattle, good luck. But if you want an abundant crop, there's going to be some messes to clean up. But it's worth it, is the point. Life is messy, but God likes to bless the mess. How often do we just keep our little house clean, nobody can come over, and we just think everything's great, we got everything under control, and we just have this little sterile life. That's not, keeping the barn perfectly clean is not the point. We're going to stink. We're going to step in each other's junk. Somebody's going to have to get a shovel and get it out. Somebody's going to have to get some clean shavings and throw it down. But the crop of actually living together and letting people see what it's like to be around people that are at least trying to forgive, and heaven help us if we ever get to the point where we can forgive in the moment, people that don't know Jesus will be like, it will demand an explanation. How many people do you know that sit there like, oh, they're cutting my toe off right now? Well, you probably don't know what you're doing, but I forgive you. Like, come on. It's literally otherworldly, and it's supposed to be. And it is moving towards what he wants for us most. Instead of being so concerned about, was it fair? Was it right? Did I get what I deserve? We're so blown away by the billions of sins that he's forgiven us, that the little tiny things that are done to us, like Ruth, we find a way to forgive. I want to start to close by sharing one more example of forgiveness. Some of you might remember this. In 2018, a Dallas police officer got done with a 10 or 12-hour shift. Amber Geiger was her name. And she lived in an apartment building that was 20 stories high or something like that. And she lived on the 14th floor, 14C, we'll call it. And every floor was identical. But she got off the elevator at 13 instead of 14. So she got off the elevator, started walking down the hall, and went to C, thinking it was her apartment. So instead of 14C, she's at 13C. She opens the door, and she sees somebody sitting on the couch in her apartment in the dark. And she thought it was an intruder. She pulled her service pistol, and she fatally shot the man, who happened to be unarmed. I don't know all the details. She got sentenced to 10 years, and at the end of her court proceedings, that man's younger brother got up and said this, what you're about to see on the video. This is Brant, the younger brother of the man who was killed by Amber.
Myself, I forgive you. And I know if you go to God and ask him, he will forgive you. And I don't think anyone can say, again, I'm speaking for myself, not even bad for my family, but I love you just like anyone else. And I'm not going to say I hope you rot and die just like my brother did, but I personally want the best for you. And I wasn't going to ever say this in front of my family or anyone, but I don't even want you to go to jail. I want the best for you. Because I know that's exactly what both of them would want you to do. And the best would be give your life to Christ. I'm not going to say anything else. I think giving your life to Christ would be the best thing that both of them would want you to do. Again, I love you as a person. And I don't wish anything bad on you. I don't know if this is possible, but can I give her a hug, please? Please?
Yes.
That's good, Bob. Thank you. That's good, Bob. We say we believe in a God who literally, voluntarily gave up his life. That should be the norm for us. And I don't want anybody here to feel guilty. I want this to be an invitation to following who we say we believe. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Give us our bread, take care of this stuff. Forgive us as we forgive those who murder our brother. Imagine the peace and the freedom that Brant has. Obviously, he gets it. He understands what he's been forgiven of, and it impacts his daily life. A month ago, Pastor Worth stood right here and said, you either stand with Jesus or you don't. In a minute, I'm going to ask for you to stand if you fit into one of these categories. If prior to coming in here, you never knew that Jesus was willing to give up his life for you, and that all he's asking for is forgiveness, and you understand that because of the choices you made, there's a separation between you and him, and you want to close that gap, and you want to experience this forgiveness, you want him to come live in you and start changing you from the inside out to make this miraculous type of lifestyle possible, I'm going to ask you to stand. If you have already given your life and received his forgiveness, but this whole, I gotta forgive other people is new to you, but you're willing to try and you want to go there, then I'm going to ask you to stand. And if you're already in this blown away mindset of, I can't believe he forgave me, I can't believe he paid for that too, and I love forgiving other people, and now you're willing to help other people figure out how that happened, what that looks like, what does that look like on a daily basis, how do I get so close to him that that happens, then I'm going to ask you to stand. Whether you're a part of this church or not, if you fit any of those categories, please stand. If you were in that first category, please talk to somebody afterwards. If you're like, I've never been a part of being in relationship with him, I don't know what that looks like, but I want to, talk to somebody. Talk to Pastor Worth, talk to me, talk to Rob, talk to Mike, talk to Bob, talk to somebody that you trust that's actually trying to follow Jesus, not just follow the rules and believe it. And if you're part of the community church, then start asking, like, how can I get involved in this? I'm here in this believing, but I want to be over here where I'm actually following. And if you're part of a different church or from somewhere else, then get with somebody anywhere and say, hey, are we doing this? Because I want some of that. We're going to finish with this. I told all the elders and the leadership months ago, if we're going to try to do this disciple thing, one, it's got to start with you. It's got to start with us. Two, we're going after the men. If we don't have men that are following Jesus, we're wasting our time. So I'm going to ask any man here in a second to come forward, because when Mike and I were praying and talking about what songs to use this week, he, no kidding, said the following: hey, I've always had this idea, and you may not like it, but I'm going to put it out there anyways. What do you think about inviting the men forward to sing a cappella at the end? And I said, I got to tell you what I told them. So if you're a man and you're willing to give this a shot, whether that's be humble enough to say, I want to meet Jesus, or to say, hey, I've been forgiven, but I don't forgive anybody, but I want to. Or, hey, I've been forgiven, and I do forgive, and I'm willing to help teach others how to forgive. Then please come forward. We're going to demonstrate humility, meekness, leadership, and we're going to sing this song out loud.
Come on, gentlemen.
To Jesus.
You're not going to be mic'd, so nobody's going to hear your voice individually.